My name is Kassahun Checole. I'm the publisher of Africa World Press and the Red Sea Press. I've been in the publishing business for over 36 years. And our main purpose in the publishing industry is to publish books of scholarship or academia, of facts and figures regarding the history, politics, social life of African peoples. And that is African peoples all over the world. We publish books as far away as Russia, as close by the United States. We look at historical figures, historical issues with political nuances, social nuances. We have them peer-reviewed. We have them edited properly, designed properly, and we put them out in the market for other people to preview or buy and read. So the first book I want to tell you about is a book called Ready from Within. It is the story of the civil rights movement and a particular woman. You can say she is the Rosa Parks of civil rights education. Her name was Septima Clark. Septima Clark is a unique individual who, with her friends and colleagues, understood the need to educate social activists, to prepare them in the legal framework, in the historical framework, in the factual framework, in the social resistance framework. And she didn't want people to go marching in places without knowing what their rights, their responsibilities are. So she created an institution along with her friends called the Highland Educational Center. And that center has been around since the 1960s when the movement, civil rights movement started, and it still existed, it still functions. The story of her book is a story of how that evolved and came about, what contributions it did. And the book is really wonderfully told by a writer from California. And it originally published by Alice Walker's publishing house. When that folded, we take it over from her and republished it, redesigned it, and we still have it in press. One of the traditions of Africa World Press is that we have kept all of the books that we have published since 1983 to the present. In as much as possible, I would say 98% still in press. Of course, as the books age, the number of books that you print and keep in stock also declines or decreases. But they're still alive, they're still well. So books, people can buy our books as early as from the earliest period to the present. So Ready from Within is something that everyone who wants and has to be an activist, social activist, has to read, because there's a genuine history of bringing change about in the American political spectrum by following the law and knowing the rights that you have as a citizen to protest peacefully and to make the change happen. And then about 2 years ago, we published another civil rights activist, a victim of the 1960s criminal act of white resistance people. You know very well about the 4 Birmingham girls who were killed because of an assault on their church through a bombing of individuals who consciously went to hurt people, and they bombed the church. As a result, 4 kids were killed, and a lot of people know about the 4 girls from Birmingham church. Not too many people know that among these girls were also other girls who were also hurt, particularly one that was hurt devastatingly but she survived. She's a sister of one of the victims. And we published her book entitled The Fifth Little Girl. It's the story about the Birmingham church bombing, and it's a very important item. This young lady lost her eye, one of her eyes. She was totally damaged. She was hospitalized for a long time to recover and to be active again. But her victimization was just not the physical, it was also the social and the mental, because society did not recognize her as a victim. They recognized the dead girls, but not the one that was survived. So this is a book of survival, of struggle, of adaptation in life, and still living to tell the story. We call the book The Fifth Little Girl. And it's an important work that I think and I hope that people will read and continue to support this person. You know, in our publishing program, we also have books of recapturing or bringing back into active life. One of this was very important for me in particular, is a book by Robert Allen called Black Awakening in Capitalist America. It was published by a major New York house publisher under the editorship of people like Mary Brown and others who were in Doubleday at that time. And the book did extremely well. When I was teaching at Rutgers University, I used that book for 3 terms in my classes. Then I went out of the country to teach in Mexico. On my return, that book has been discontinued. Remember, I had classes of about 300 kids or so who relied on that book to read the history of American life and society. And Black Awakening in Capitalist America told the resistance against the repression in the country, and also mainly the nature of the society that bred or created the conditions of operation. When I started publishing in 1983, I approached Doubleday to see if they can sell the rights to us so we can republish the book, so I can use it, continue to use it in my classes. And that book has now been around with us for over 30 years. And we keep it alive. It's still used by schools, not at the numbers that we used to use it, declined numbers, but as important as it is, I would not dare put it out of print. So it's an important work, Black Awakening in Capitalist America. The author is Robert Allen, and I thank Mary Brown, who became an agent to restore that book back to us and keep it alive. So one of the most important works also I published in the late 80s, early 90s, is a book by a young woman from Florida who wrote a book called Mother of Us All. This is a story of the legendary Queen Nanny of Jamaica. And people do not know the story, because Queen Nanny was a woman patriot, a Maroon, who resisted colonialism, who resisted enslavement, who went up to the mountains in order to fight a good fight, to organize her people, what have you. This young lady did the archival and also ancestral research. She took people who knew her in person. She did the research in the libraries and published a book called Mother of Us All, Queen Nanny and the Maroons. It's a very vitally important work that we keep in press, sells all the time in Amazon.com, and it's something that people ought to read, because the women fighters in the Maroon age are totally forgotten, because people assume that the fighters were men. But the fighters included women, and those women were leaders of the movement. So it is important to revitalize that kind of thinking, that kind of population, that existed and worked on behalf of black people. I should also tell you, I had the good fortune of meeting a man, a historian, an elder even at that time, a writer by profession and by conviction, who was set to tell the history of African people in the United States and around the world. His name was John Henry Clark. He is a self-made scholar. He's a scholar who did deep research on the conditions and history of his people. He wrote and published and edited many books. He was a good friend of James Baldwin, Du Bois, and other scholars from Langston Hughes on, essentially covering the whole Harlem Renaissance personalities. He knew them all, and he documented their history as well. Just before 1990s, he collected essays on two books, one called Malcolm X, simply a biography, but contained all the speeches that were produced when Malcolm X's funeral was organized by Harlemites. And people came in and gave papers and presentations and spoke openly about what Malcolm X meant with them. The book is still alive and well. It's called Malcolm X, a biography. It's a very vital work and contribution by John Henry Clark. That is him as an editor. The second book, also equally valuable, is called The African World Revolution, or Notes on the African World Revolution. We subtitled Crossroads in the history of black people, and still sells quite well. When he published it, we published it. We took John Henry Clark on a tour of the United States. The best number of people who came for book signing that I saw was organized by SO1 Bookstore in California. James Puget and Thomas Hamilton took the time to organize this. Their bookstore was not big enough to accommodate the people that we were expecting. So they actually took us to a big church in which to accommodate hundreds of people who came to see John Henry Clark, to tell the story, to sign the book, and to get themselves on a book. That book is still alive and well, and is an important work for anyone who wants to revisit the significance of the revolutionary act of black people in surviving and fighting for equality in this country.